So I'm Masood Raja, and I'm sorry I didn't announce this live stream in advance, but it's been a while since I've done this. So I thought today, since I had some time, I should try reaching out and seeing if some of you will join me. So far, we don't have anyone here, but I'll wait a few minutes and see if anyone joins. And then today's live stream is kind of a general live stream. Part of it is getting in touch with you all, back in touch, I mean, and also any questions that you might have about literary theory, post-colonialism, or about your writing projects. I'll be very happy to answer any of those questions. So let's hope some of you join me and we'll go from there. And obviously, if no one joins me in a few minutes, then I will close this chat off and move on. And I think Nilesh has joined us. Welcome. Just let us know where are you joining from, and just post your questions in the chat. And thank you so much for joining me. And if I can be of any help, I haven't done a live stream this year, I think the whole year. So I'm kind of, getting back in touch with it, and I hope to continue doing it more regularly, but maybe in the future it will be kind of more focused, and I'll announce it in advance on the channel. But today it's kind of a free-for-all, so let me know. Okay, Tanveer, thank you so much. And yes, I'm okay. Hi, Deb, welcome. I've been kind of busy and, a lot of changes in life and a lot of things happening. So that's why I guess I didn't have enough time or energy to do the live streams. But I have been, as best as possible, adding more materials to the channel, which if you follow, you know that that's pretty regular. Okay, Mohammed, will you collaborate for Scopus indexed research articles? 5 years ago, maybe I would have, but these days I am not really producing any articles or researching any. I am working on a book on Palestine, but that, is a long-term project. But I can always offer my help if you have any specific questions about your articles. And Mohammed, yeah, I can see your comments. And Tanveer, thank you so much. And I have a question. You should make more videos on post-liberalism, solidarity without sameness. I really look forward to learning. Okay, good. I mean, as you might have seen, a lot of my work already published and on YouTube. It's kind of, it's left informed, and there is always a critique of a naive kind of liberalism. But I'll see if I can do something more focused on it. And Iqbal Malik, yeah, some health issues, some life issues, but overall, everything is okay. And okay, who else is there? Hamza, welcome. So thank you all. I'm so delighted because I didn't announce it. I just decided like 15 minutes ago that today is a good day to get back into live streams, and there are 14 of you here already. And then I have Julio, right? Please correct me if I'm saying it wrong. No, Jill, well, tell me your name because your question is, could you do a lecture on paradigm of immunization? Oh, okay, Esposito. I mean, so the only work of Roberto Esposito that I've carefully read is not Immunitas, but Bios. And I think I recorded a couple of videos on it. But let me see if I have the book. I, I think I have Bios. So maybe I can reread it in the next, couple of weeks or months, and then if I feel ready, absolutely. But if you are reading Esposito, I would highly recommend also reading Giorgio Agamben because, and Franco Berardi. I mean, Esposito comes from the Italian Marxist tradition, but his discussion of bios, of course, is kind of built on Agamben's reading of Zoe and bios in Homo Sacer. But I'll try. Um, and then who else? Okay, Islamic Reel, welcome. So if you have any general or particular questions, I'm here. I'll be here for the next at least 30 minutes. So please feel free to ask them and I'll try my best to answer those. And, or if you feel like sharing what are you working on and share your thoughts and I will try to respond to them. But it's kind of really nice to get back in touch with you all. And I think I have not done a live stream since 2024 and not from our house here in Wheeling. So it's kind of a new start for me here. So Mohammed, I don't know. I can see this comment where you're saying I made a comment. I think you can't see it, but let me go up and see what was your comment. Can you see my comment, sir? Not before that one. So maybe if you can post it again. Let me go back. Okay, you made video on, I don't know what to ask, just thinking. Okay, thank you, Tanveer. I'm working on German playwright Brecht. Okay, you're working on Brecht. Personally, other than, a few things that we literary theorists use from Brecht, I have not read a lot of Brecht. But I mean, I do know the kind of plays he writes and wrote, and the techniques that he uses, especially breaking the fourth wall. But I could talk about it like with some knowledge of postmodernism, but not specifically knowing his work. Could you, okay, all right. Could you make a video, if you haven't already, about journals, lit magazines that literature students could attempt to submit papers to? I haven't done a video on it, but if you go to my website, postcolonial.net, and there is a link in the top links which says POCO resources or postcolonial resources. And if you go to the drop down menu there is a list of about 100 journals that I had created, I don't know, about 12 years ago. Some of those might have gone out of print or something, but most of those journals are related to postcolonial studies and some about general English studies. So you might want to look through those journals and that list. But I think maybe I'll put it on my list. I will probably do a video about some specific journals related to some specific subjects. I'll put it on my list for the future. Okay, so yeah, Tanveer, that concept of breaking the fourth wall, There is a specific term from Brecht that I am not recalling right now, which has that effect on the audience. I will, if I recall it, I'll mention it. But other than like general, what we extrapolate from Brecht, I don't have any specific knowledge of his works. And here I'm working on cancer narratives based on American context and looking at them from the framework of, okay, yeah, that biopolitics might work with it because the thing with biopolitics is you have to connect it. Remember, biopolitics, the term biopolitics in Foucault comes in what we call the genealogical phase of Foucault. So the first early works is what we call archaeological, right? And the main distinction between them is that in the archaeological phase, like Discipline and Punish and others, Foucault is tracing what happens to the individual body under disciplinary practices and laws. In the genealogical phase, like History of Sexuality, Volume 1 to 3, and others, he's talking about how the state apparatuses, right, how they shape or label and create discourses that deal with constituencies, that deal with groups of people, not just individual body. So maybe, absolutely, I think it will work. I don't know how because I haven't thought about it critically. But yes, I mean, my approach always is if I'm using a theoretical approach or a philosophical approach, I first kind of explain what I understand of it and why do I think I'm using it. It will depend on the length of your work. I mean, if it's just a brief article, maybe you don't have time there to explain how you're reading a particular theory. But if it's a book or a dissertation, you have room to explain why you're using biopolitics and you know. And if you're interested, I would also recommend Echele Mbembe's On the Post Colony, where he theorizes the concept of necropolitics. And that might be, useful to you. Okay, let me go to the next. Nilesh, saw your video explaining wearing suits and speaking English are not form. Doesn't the presence of aesthetic elements from two or more countries place the dynamic? Yeah, absolutely. I should have mentioned that in that video. I mean, personally, to me, it doesn't really matter how you dress because at a certain point, what is authentic anyway? Because I mean, authentic itself is performative. It's not like we can reach into ourselves and draw out the authentic. And if you really go by Lacan and anyone else, our idea of what is real, right, we can experience it. But the moment we articulate it in expression or in our dress or in how we conduct ourselves, it's in the symbolic order, it's in language. And the moment it enters language, it is subject to the so-called law of the father or the culture in which we live. So mixing dresses, codes, languages, I think it's the most productive space. I mean, at the end of the day, what is authenticity to me is to whom or with which constituency do I align my work, right? Imperfect as it might be, is do I speak for power? Do I try to rationalize the narratives of a dominant group? Or, doesn't matter if I wear a suit or a shalwar kameez, have I aligned myself with those who are oppressed anywhere in the world? It will still be imperfect. It will be in the symbolic order. There is no saying that I speak with so and so, no, but in solidarity with others. And that's where the leftist scholarship is necessary, an understanding of class and cross-class solidarities. And that's where I think, and I've always emphasized it, and if you follow the channel, I highly recommend the series on Paulo Freire, because as I started reading and discussing that book, I realized that he gives us a really great blueprint into how to develop revolutionary solidarities across cultures, across class, through education. But I highly recommend it. Okay, I have a question from Mohammed. What are the best topics to make research articles on the topic Salman Rushdie and satanic verses that relates to modern topics? Uh, that's a highly written about book, especially Salman Rushdie. If you really want to explore, if you go to my recent book, like the 2023 book, Democratic Criticism, it's actually an extended response, not just to the satanic verses, but how it was received. The book is available online, it's free. That's why I published it with a digital native publisher, because they could publish it open access. So I highly recommend it. That's my 2 bits on it. And it might give you some ideas about how to tackle not just the satanic verses itself, but the reception aspects of it. That's what I dealt with in the book. But as for the new topics, that's always a hard question for me to answer, because I'm currently not involved in active research, so I don't really know where the debate is. So how do you find where the debate is? I mean, our best hope is to go to the databases and search, do a keyword search, and find out what is still being published about the book, what kind of debates are there, and then that's what will help you find a topic. I have a video on the channel that kind of explains this, how do we choose a topic of anything, a dissertation or a paper. Okay, so what is the difference between Orientalism and New Orientalism? There is no difference. I mean, yeah, New Orientalism seems like a cool term, but the way people are using it, I think, I won't say it is wrong, but I think it does a very thin reading of Orientalism itself. What Said says in the introduction to Orientalism very clearly is that I am not saying that the Europeans have misrepresented or stereotyped the East. That's not what he's trying to suggest. If you read his introduction, Said was one of the first American scholars to use Foucault's theory of discourse to write an extensive work. So what he's saying is, what I am trying to do in Orientalism is to suggest that this way of looking at the East, the Islamic East in his case, is not accidental. It's not just built from prejudices. There's a body of knowledge behind it. That knowledge is produced, was produced, is perpetuated, is taught, is debated, is discussed. And hence, because people are in that discourse, it becomes almost impossible for them to see the Middle East, to see the Islamic Orient beyond that discourse. I'm kind of simplifying Said here. You can follow my series on Said for that. But so New Orientalism, some people who have written about it, they either say that, okay, there are South Asian authors or Muslim authors who are Orientalizing themselves. One particular prerequisite for the discourse of Orientalism is that a culture or a group in the world has enough power to define another culture and produce knowledge about it. Needs that structure of power, right? individual opinions here and there will be in a given discourse, but it cannot shape a new discourse. So, New Orientalism, I don't know if it exists or not. I think we can use Orientalism in our readings of it, in our understanding of it, and still, you know, do our work. But that's my kind of convoluted response on that. Okay, I will see if I can do a video on good journals. Okay, please suggest some works on politics of continentalization, like The Myth of Continents by Martin Lewis, archipelagic think. These are some of the topics I would say, like some of my weak areas, right, are the readings about the Middle Passage, and then the colonization elsewhere, like New Zealand, Australia, those areas I would consider my weak areas. So off the cuff, probably I couldn't, other than maybe the Black Atlantic, right, and by Paul Gilroy, which I think deals with the Middle Passage. And there is a work kind of tangentially related to it, and that is by what's the scholar's name? Last name Ronda, and the book is called Taking Haiti. And that's kind of writing which basically says that historically, U.S. invasion of Haiti has been designated as a side event, but then she says it is central to how United States sees itself during the invasion of Haiti and after that, and how President Wilson and Marine Corps, do that. I would highly recommend that book too. Okay. So Mohammed, I'm not actively writing articles at this point, so sorry to disappoint, but if I get back to it, absolutely reach out to me. Okay, I think I answered the Salman Rushdie one. Okay, so metaphysical poetry. I wish my wife were here. She will be able to explain it better. I mean, it's a school of poetry, right? The metaphysical poets. But off the cuff, like what were their main attributes? Probably I couldn't explain it. I will ask Jenny and maybe, record a video on it. Okay, when I started writing my thesis, I found it difficult to form my ideas on biopolitics. Thank you for drawing insight to Agaman and Mumembe. Yeah, biopolitics is a difficult concept. One of my students, her book, I mean, you can look her up, Hella Bloom. She was one of my doctoral students. She used it, and we had to really, really learn together what exactly does it mean. Just remember that biopolitics, when Foucault discusses it, it is related to biopower, but not necessarily, they are not exchangeable. So how does Foucault talk about biopolitics? What he says is that post-classical, post-17th century, and I couldn't name a single book, right? So I'm just giving you kind of a mixture of my understanding of it. The sovereign, which means the government or the king, instead of defining itself as someone who could put people to death or execute them, starts defining itself as the life-giving force, biopower, right? How? In order to claim that the sovereign's job is to save and protect life, they then must rely on information. How? So they start carrying out census, right? Counting people. And when they count people who are countable, and they count people who are not part of the body politic. So in the process of counting people worthy of the dispensation from the sovereign, they automatically create people who are outside of that sovereign privilege, right? Hence the figure of the vagrant, the figure of the sick, the figure of the homosexual. All of these are objects of the discourse of biopolitics. So in the process then, the system of politics shifts. It starts making policy and starts justifying it not in terms of I am the king and I have the power to put you to death, but I am the sovereign and I protect life. So if you understand that aspect of biopolitics, then you can bring it to the modern time where you will see a government here, a government over there. They will make a policy and try to justify it by saying this protects our citizens, this will protect your culture, this will protect your modesty, this will protect your health, right? All of those are biopolitical claims, but in the process of doing that, they already create the other, right? The threat from whom they are trying to protect you, right? It could be a disease, it could be a group of people, it could be a place. That creation of the other is sort of an outcome of biopolitics because the sovereign is trying to claim, I am protecting life, I am protecting you. The moment you invoke that you're being, I am protecting you, I'm a life-giving force, you have to then posit, what are you protecting me from? So that's roughly my understanding of biopolitics. So if you keep that in mind as you read more and more Foucault and start writing, I think that would help you more. Okay, let me see what other... Is Esposito extending the ideas of Foucault and Agamben or critiquing them? I mean, he builds on them. I read him long time ago, so I couldn't say. But obviously, he is an Italian philosopher, right? So if you read him carefully, you will see, I mean, you'll have to read Agamben, right? And then I think if you compare them, you will see he has extended it in a way. He's not refuted it, but he has kind of looked at it from a different angle. And I think the only way you will be able to know the difference is if you read them comparatively. Concept of cultural studies. I mean, it's not a concept, it's a field of study. So in United States, it used to be, a separate field. It still is partially now subsumed by either English departments or comparative lit departments. Anytime you study cultural artifacts, they could be art, they could be literature, poetry. Anytime you study them from the point of view of how they either define culture or how culture produces them, would be considered cultural studies. I have a brief reader somewhere lying around in the house because I was curious about it myself. So maybe in the next couple of months, I will reread it and have a more focused, response to this. I don't know which poem you, मैं सोच के जिस नगर में रहता हूँ. Well, the poem is like in the video. I mean, you can just write it down. I've never published it. I just wrote it and then recorded it both for my English and Urdu channel. So I know the concept archipelagic reading But I will have to go and reread the concept clearly. Who is it that I'll have to read? I think I'll have to read Clifford. I think the question of culture, because off the cuff, I don't want to give you an opinion that is not well informed. But I think I'll also have to read Edward Glissant and see what he has to say about it. Okay, I think I've addressed pretty much all the questions, and 19 of you have joined me, so that's really amazing. And so let me see if I missed any questions. Okay, so yeah, let me know if you have any more questions, and if not, then in about 5 minutes I'll sign off. Okay, but let's do this more regularly. Next time I'll post it in advance so that more people can join us. Okay, so what's the difference between decolonial and post-colonial? Please elaborate on it. So a lot of people who do, and I have a video on it too, who do what they call decolonial thinking and decolonial. I mean, the idea they get is from Walter Manvolo. Okay, so Manvolo, in his book, The Darker Side of Modernity, and he is the leading theorist of decolonial thought. About 4 pages of the book is he explaining how we need to decolonize thought, right? And he goes to the pre-modern cosmologies of Latin America, right, which are connected to the earth, which are connected to a harmonious life. And what he's trying to theorize there isn't a repudiation of the West. What he's trying to say is that the mode of thinking that we have here in the world in which we function, wherever we are, is run through instrumental logic, right? What is instrumental logic? Is that I look at a thing, I'm always focused on the end, right? How do I get there, right? And you can instrumentalize text, people, animals in the process, nature in the process. So what he proposes there is to retrieve modes of thinking which are not saturated in that instrumental logic. I don't think so. He says we need to become purist there. But the idea is, can we develop modes of explaining the world, thinking the world, acting in it, which are not so deeply permeated by the Western capitalistic logic? Which I kind of admire, the attempt at it. The way people are using decolonial thinking in Pakistan or in India, it has become, sadly, a tool in the hands of reactionary politics, right? Reactionary critics. So in India, people who are decolonial, what are they doing? We need to jettison the colonial British history. We need to completely wipe out the Muslim influences, right? So that we can retrieve a purist Hindu past, right? So decolonialism then, for them, they have a cosmology of Hinduism, but it then becomes an exclusionary cosmology through which the present might be shaped as well as the past of India. If you look at Pakistan, what are the decolonial thinkers saying? We don't need English literary theory. We don't need English philosophy. All that we need is there in the Islamic texts, in following Islam philosophy or jurisprudence and whatever. Now, what does it do? Instead of creating a liberatory movement, it takes them to a past, right? And then reduces any possibility of borrowing thought from other and changing the world with a modern outlook. So was the intent in Minvolo theorizing decolonial thought, was it great? Absolutely. The practice of it, has it worked fine? Maybe. In cultures where the cosmologies are environmental friendly, but also multicultural and inclusive, yes, absolutely, decolonial thinking is the way to go about it. Where it becomes kind of a tool in the hands of the most intolerant constituencies, maybe not. So postcolonialism does that. It does decolonial thinking. I mean, the reason it's called postcolonial isn't because the world became postcolonial. No, it was because it was a safe term in the 80s to use in the universities, right? No one, not even a single scholar of postcolonial studies, will tell you that what they mean is, oh, colonialism is over and what comes after that is what we talk about. No. So that's roughly kind of my understanding of decolonial thought. Um, okay. So I think I already talked about instrumental rationality. I'm not going to go in about post-humanism because I can't handle it in 5 minutes. Um, so I don't know who they are, the Darwin's theory of evolution. The Indian government is placing a huge amount of, yeah, I mean, so that kind of decolonial thought then becomes kind of a sanitizing practice. And people start sanitizing history. And once you sanitize history, how decolonial is that? What you then get is a highly doctored understanding of history. Um, okay, so Zygmunt Bauman, I don't have anything on liquid modernity, but I do have a couple of lectures on his book on globalization. So if I ever get around to reading Liquid Modernity, but it's a really brief and self-explanatory book, I will see what I can do about it. Let me see if I missed a question. Black skin, white masks, indifferent from the phenomenon. Yes, actually, if you go to the channel, I have about 4 videos on Fanon, and one of them deals with the early and later Fanon, and in which I kind of point out that people who read Black Skin, White Masks, and when they read The Wretched of the Earth, they should realize that the Fanon of the Wretched of the Earth is at a different stage in his life, but also in his thought, and we have to read him with that knowledge, right? If you remember, Black Skin, White Masks ends at this idea of a new kind of humanism, right? Um, oh, my body, grant me, that's where kind of the last sentence. But The Wretched of the Earth is a more revolutionary book in that sense because he's already part of the FLN. He is involved in the Algerian liberation struggle, and he's dealing with colonization, the brute force of it. But I do recommend the video that I already have on the channel. Okay. All right, so thank you so much for joining me. And okay, Wazir. All right, thank you. Thank you for your questions. And then I'm going to sign off here now, but I have some good ideas that you have given me, and then I'll make sure to do this more often and then maybe announce it much in advance so that more of you can join me. And until then, okay. And no, I don't even know how to end it here, but maybe if I hit that cross on the left, it will allow me to end it. But that's all for today. And as always, if you have any questions, you can post a comment on a video and I'll absolutely respond to it. And I have a couple of good ideas. I'll see what I can do about those. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a good day. And as always, what I say at the end, peace and love.